Call to order the Belville Board of Commissioners organizational meeting, February 16th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. And we all stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Most gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we ask you to give us the guidance, Lord, and the leadership ability to make the right decisions for our town. And Lord, we pray for all of our people in uniform. Watch over them and everybody in this COVID area that hopefully that's coming to an end, Lord. We ask that you protect and watch over them in those precious name of Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank everybody for being here. The first order of business, if I could, Commissioner Mailer cannot be here tonight. And if I could have a motion that we excuse him. Motion to excuse. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, moving to item 2, approval of the agenda. If the commissioners had an opportunity to look over the agenda. If there's any changes or notes or anything we need to do, or could I have a motion we accept the agenda as is? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you so much. Before we get in that, like I say, we got pretty much a lot on our plate tonight, some big decisions we'll be making in this budget process with everything that's going forward. And I look forward to working with y'all on this, and I say it's going to be a little tough, I think, and so much with the processing issues we got to go through. But we'll move on. We'll start with item 3, the Belville Parks and Recreation, and we'll start with A, and I guess on that, Madam Town Manager, you want to start off on giving us information on that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Over the past couple of years, we've been trying to improve our signage and branding, and we would like to improve the sign at the Belville Park. So Southern Signs has provided you with a few designs, and we request that you come to a consensus on a design, or either ask us to investigate and give you some other options.
We can open up and have the commission, y'all, we had a chance to look at it. I've looked at all of it, looked over, and I always notice one thing, no matter what design it is, the only thing that changes is the cost. And the cost is never cheap. But you know, the park is one of the highlights of our town, and people come up, we do want, our park will go in, and I think we're trying to make it very professional, and I think our signage out front is also going to tell a story also. That sign that's been up there has been there ever since we took over the park. It was meant to be kind of a more limited time frame than what it's actually stayed up. So if we could have a little bit of discussion on what does staff have any idea which one they prefer?
I believe the park director would like to have something that does not limit visibility. Also, we have a gate reader there. So he'd like to have something that doesn't interfere with the gate reader. And I believe, Mr. Mayor, you wanted something that was internally illuminated.
Yes.
So, but doesn't interfere with traffic. And Mayor Pro Tem, I believe, would like to have something that is consistent, that our visualization is consistent throughout the town.
Yeah, I think that goes along with the branding and trying to have something professional, something standard, something that we can all kind of recognize as being town of. So the sign design I like is the one that's very similar to the one that we have out there. I think it's the third selection in here. It's
You want to cost them out?
12262. Well, you know, we're trying to invest, like you said when you started, that the park is one of our gems of the town, and we should try to treat it as such by trying to at least, make it look nice and trying to make it professional.
Yeah, I think, from looking at the picture, this is true. I guess what I'm trying to say is, when they add those columns and we've got, okay, that's just the one column. Can we get the picture of the other one? The one with both columns, there we go.
Is there a recommendation from the committee? Does Parks and Rec have a recommendation for us?
I don't believe they were involved in that. I'm more present to the L-shaped one because of visibility.
Yeah, and too, I think the other column could perhaps.
Yes.
I think part of the problem that we have, period, with the amount of space we have there, of course, I think we can actually move it back some.
And I think that's the rendition.
Because when people come up, to go to 133, you really have to kind of creep up slow to see the traffic coming from the south. But I think we're seeing, even with the design with the two columns, the sign's actually gonna set back further than the existing sign sets now, which would be a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, and you're looking at the intersection, you're gonna be able to look around that sign. You're gonna go out far enough to see it.
Well, if it's gonna set back the way it looks, as long as they can see the traffic good, and I wanted a sign that was illuminated basically internally, where it's always lit, so at nighttime, 24/7, you see the thing. And of course, the way they make them nowadays, they're nice little signs. And I hope they're solid in case something hits it, which I'm sure something will hit it sooner or later. The way some of the people drive.
Well, the other thing I wanted to discuss too is renaming the park. I think it says there on the 3A item. I know that the reason why we picked the Brunswick Riverwalk at Belville was that we took it over from the county, and we wanted to make sure that the county wasn't slighted by us, kind of just assuming automatically it was Belville's park. But at the dedication for the dock, talking to the commissioners from the county, they're very okay with the fact that this is Belville's park. They don't have any delusion whatsoever that it's not still their park. So I would like to see the name changed to Belville Riverwalk in Brunswick County, or in whatever. Something has Brunswick County at the bottom, has Belville more prominently displayed. So it's still Riverwalk, but like Belville Riverwalk.
And part of me that wants to agree with you on that, part of it not, so I'll tell you why. Our branding right now, which it has to change over time, but right now it don't matter where you go on the internet, anywhere you go, magazines, everything, Brunswick Riverwalk is where everybody looks at it now. And if we do rename it, how long is it gonna take in the process to kind of phase out what it's named now? And that's,
Well, I still think with everything, and we have our social media person here too, that's we can go ahead and start posting and advertising in the social media to say, hey, we're updating our name, reflect the fact that it's more Belville, and we can do that with how many social media applications we have.
Has Parks and Rec had the chance to review this and give a recommendation?
I do not believe so.
Okay. So where I am, I love their feedback. I mean, they are pivotal in the work that they lead and they do. I don't disagree with anything that's being shared. I just want the feedback. And for the purpose of the budget, I pick the highest amount and put in there, and then get a recommendation from Parks and Rec, and then move forward. That's just my opinion.
Well, I appreciate that, but, bottom line is that Parks and Rec only looks over some things. They don't really tell us what we should be doing. It's our final decision to make a decision whether or not we want to try to move this along. I'm fine if we want to drag this out for another month and 2 months. To get
I mean, We got some independent thinkers, I think, sitting in here. Adrian, how do you feel about if we leave it the same or change it?
I mean, considering everything you guys have invested in the park, I could definitely understand wanting Belville to be more prominent. And if you are gonna make the change, now's probably the time, because, we did have the addition of the kayak launch and everything, but fingers crossed soon enough, there'll be phase 2 developed and the park's just gonna pick up more momentum. So now would be the time to make the change, I would think. And we can definitely utilize all the social media outlets, we can, it's doable.
I guess it's just, like I say, I'm just talking. I mean, I just like the name of it myself. I guess because it's just been that for ever since it's been designed. Because Brunswick County did have it, we called it Brunswick River Walk. And of course, we changed the Brunswick River Walk at Belville.
I think the confusion lies in the fact that people still don't know that that's our park. They think it's a county park and it's located in Belville.
What was the name of the park before we transferred it to the county?
Brunswick River Park.
Brunswick River?
Before we transferred it to the county, John D. Long Park.
And then the other side is, it is on the Brunswick River. So if you really look at the first part of that, the Brunswick River walk, I see both ways.
And that's reading, looking at, like I say, it is on the Brunswick River.
Again, my final, just me, is that you take it to the board of Parks and Rec, you ask them for their opinion. We get their opinion back next month and we either agree or disagree with it. At least then you have a recommendation from.
Well, I tell you, I don't think we have to make a decision tonight on it, but I think what the Mayor Pro Tem has, we actually need, I think we've got there, if we get, is there any way we can get a picture design with the, how do you want the name of it?
Belville River Walk in Brunswick County.
Is there any way we can get that and get it designed so we have a picture of how that looks and everything when it's on the sign?
Yes. Mhm. Do you want the same,
Okay, with it.
That's not me yet.
do you want the same artwork?
Like I said, I'd like to keep it standard.
Okay.
So,
Just pick one or the other.
And I think what we've got there, the way it, says how kind of the architectural, the way it looks.
yes, sir. Like I said, I would like, I don't know if we're gonna grow, but as we grow and as we do signage and everything, I think we're trying to move towards a more standard, consistent, professional looking thing for our town instead of just the kind of Frankenstein things we kind of throw up to.
How does this
mismatch.
one look compared to that sign?
Well, this one looks identical to that sign.
It is.
Well, other than it says the town of Belville.
But, I mean, like the stone structure,
The stone structure, everything's.
is that the same height and,
It's just, that I don't know.
I'm not sure if it's the same height, but I think this one would be a little bit smaller because
Yeah,
of visibility, shorter.
If we can get, the thing, if we can get them to do design up there where lead base is designed the same and where Brunswick is, we'll put Belville. Is that what we're looking at?
Yes,
Put the Belville River Walk over. Just put Belville over the top of it. And we can put, do you want to put anything down at the bottom as far as if we change it?
well, I think you'd have.
We say it at Belville, we say in Brunswick.
Yeah, in Brunswick County.
Let's just have a design this so we can look at it. And I think it'll hit us all a little bit different when we see the actual visual. And part of me, I don't have a problem with renaming, but so if y'all don't have a problem with that, I'd like to get the visual so we can look at it.
I'm fine with that.
And it's got to kind of sink in. I guess it's just been called the Brunswick River Walk so dang long now, just kind of see the change is gonna be a little different, but part of me wants to agree with you that, you know, to have our town's name on the park, unless we're gonna dedicate it to something else.
Like the Mike Allen part.
No, don't think so. That wouldn't even rhyme good.
Well, and not to just continue to throw more ideas out there, but you could do the Belville Riverwalk on the Brunswick River or in Brunswick County. You can kind of connect that second piece back to the river or to the county.
Yeah,
Either way, there's gonna be a lot of words at the end, you know?
At the
I
bottom.
would be in favor of just Belville Riverwalk.
I could see that too.
Like I said, you know, just going through the last couple of years, a lot of people have not realized that it's our park. In fact, one of our neighbor doesn't understand it's our park. So, you know, it would be nice to kind of make it clear, and we should take pride in it. We've done a lot of work on it. So, you know, saying it's Belville Riverwalk.
let's see if we can get a design, a picture that we can look at with, the Belville Riverwalk. And if you could, if it ain't too hard, if it's too much trouble, don't put the words under it. If not, if we put one under there without a lot of trouble, so we see it both ways.
We'll send you some options.
Okay. Is that fine with you?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you.
And then send it to the committee.
Yeah. Let the Parks and Rec people look at it, board.
Thank you.
So y'all satisfied with that, we'll just put it on, when's our next meeting on the organizational stuff?
Our next budget meeting will be March the 19th.
Mark, would that be fine with y'all? Yeah, that's pretty quick. Okay. Next is the Phase 2 Riverwalk project. And, staff, you got any, town manager, you got anything to say on that?
Just wanted to let you know that we've reached out to a few companies just for preliminary estimates on the Riverwalk project, Phase 2. And we do have a representative from Withers Ravenel tonight, actually two.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
thank y'all for being here tonight, and, I think this is gonna be one of the biggest projects other than our multi-pass that we're gonna, do this year and get the funding for, and I think the council, if y'all have any different beliefs than I do, I think we have to look at, you know, what we've budgeted for. We're not gonna try to go over what we have. We deal with what we have, and we, do the best we can. We want something nice. We've looked at the, walk they have in Shallotte. We kind of like that format they have. We like the walkway. I think the concrete, is more expensive than the wood would be, but in the long run, the maintenance would probably be less. So we'd save, we might spend more money on one end, we save a lot of money on the other end. Because we got concrete, and, I'm not sure, that concrete that they use at Shallotte, is that solid concrete slabbing?
Yeah, it's like 10 by 10 or sections that they drop in.
Okay.
And there's slits in it for water.
Yes, sir.
Actually, it's hog slat that they use in hog operations.
Okay.
That's what the slat is in there. I looked at one at Shallotte.
Is it pretty durable as far as,
It'll hold hogs.
longevity?
Yeah, it's a precast concrete. So, and I'm not an engineer, but it's certainly going to last a lot longer than your wood structures would.
I know even, I don't care, you get the best treated wood in the world, it goes bad.
And I think that gives you a different width on that from 6 feet to 8 feet too.
And,
So our next steps, Mr. Mayor, are to have a scoping meeting with multiple agencies and determine what possibilities we have for the width of the boardwalk. And then we'll be able to nail down a little bit further what the actual cost is projected to be. Also, Owen will be helping us with surveying, mapping out the path or the possible options for the paths that you're going to be able to take on the ground. So we will have, you know, more detailed information, but at this time it's pretty high
For the
level.
commissioners will be on, what do we have financially right now that we are going to put on it? Is it strictly the 1.2 million?
Yes, and the possibility of applying for the PARTIF grant, which I believe Adrian said that we might be able to use the value of the land as matching funds.
Yeah.
So that would be 500,000 towards
Well,
matching
we'll-
funds.
So basically, we'll look at we hope we get the money for the grant, but we'll concentrate on the 1.2 million. And, we want to stay within that. I know we may have to make some changes, whether it's cutting some of the cross or how big the loop's gonna be. We want to get down to the downtown area. But I think we could probably shorten that if we had to on cost. So we're gonna have to look at the path we're gonna take, get a path set up, if we're gonna do the loop and come back. Because some of that land, when you turn off on the old, back road that goes into the DOT, is very wet. In other words, there is no dry land in a big section of that. If we're gonna loop back and have more of a walk, hard surface to go back on, we're gonna have to stop a little bit earlier to do the loop back. If we don't, we're gonna have to build a bridge system even over that portion of it. Because one, it floods, two, it's wet. That means it may not be raised up as high as the boardwalk on the river, but there's gonna have to be a boardwalk there to get over it.
Are you talking about the part that runs parallel to 133 or
Yeah,
parallel to the river?
well, when you go down 133 and you turn back on the old river road, it goes back into DOT.
Yeah.
From that portion up to the fence line of the DOT, there's nothing but water. There's no solid land there.
Is that where they have it illustrated as the parking lot?
It has to be somewhere in there. That'd be the only place. So, you know, unless, we would have to invest a whole lot more money, so we'd have to build, put pilings down, or whatever it is, even put a structure there, because you're gonna have a raised boardwalk to get over that water and do the loop. And that's gonna,
So some of the designs, I guess, we're looking at, we can kind of see, do we just want to have it running along the river? Do we want to stop at the first paths? You know, just to kind of see where the costs would break, so if we have to make choices of how far to
Yes.
stop the project.
Also, please note that this estimate is for 3,400 linear feet, and our original number was 2,400. So it may be longer or shorter, but it may be less or more depending on.
yeah, I think what's gonna happen, we're not gonna know actual cost until we get out and measure the route we wanna take. And then we got to have somebody, whoever we are looking at to build it, to come out and give us an estimate on the cost, when they have some real, they know exactly where we want to go. And I think, we have to talk to them, because I feel like the boardwalk needs to go as close to the actual water as we can go to. Because I don't think people are interested in looking at the marsh on the one we have now. We want them to walk so they see the river in the other side of the river, when they go out and walk on it. You know, ours will be kind of unique, for any place in the area to get there. Of course, that probably creates more hurdles, because you got to have a barge with a thing to put the pilings down to build it, and as far as getting material there to build it, it's gonna be a little tougher. So there's gonna be a lot of cost estimates looking into this. We got to be more rigid on, you know, like I say, we want to stay within our budget and get the best that we can get, not build cheaper, but build quality. But I think when people go out on it, if you've been down, if you went down to Charlotte and looked there, that is a nice boardwalk. And then we got to decide on the width that we need to go. We need to, what's the two widths on it?
Right now, we have estimates for 6 or 8. I know we'd like to do something more like 10, but it would depend on CAMA and their regulations. And Owen can kind of speak to what survey work has already been done in that area, what still needs to be done.
When we actually had the survey in progress for the DOT property, we basically did all of the environmental work and the surveying work that took care of the topographic end of that. So it was all included with the survey for the property acquisition or the property gift from NCDOT. And so the budget we had proposed earlier for phase 2 has been pared down to plus or minus $5,000 to give us incidental locations for the remaining work for phase 2. Basically, it's already done. We have surveys of property and topographic all the way up to the end of the DOT facility. So it's complete to that, and whatever design information we have from anything that will need to be out in the marsh will be what we need to acquire. And
Yeah.
that, I'm estimating at $5,000 or less.
Okay, thank you, that. I think we're gonna have to make a decision where we want to attach the new portion onto the existing. I think the existing, I'm trying to look at that photograph that's on there.
It has connected to the two.
If you come all the way back down to your left corner, where you see it tie into, if the new portion is gonna come off of that, and we gotta cross over that drainage piece that comes from Hawkswater, that comes on the road, you got the big tiles and it empties into the river. So if that's the route we're coming out, and I see with those two projected gazebos that we want to put there. So we have to see, and then I see a centerpiece bridge going back about halfway down the portion of it that connects back across, where if you didn't want to go the whole route, you cut back. So we're gonna have to look at everything and how much our money will allow us to do at the quality we want. We know if we make it wider, it's gonna cost more. So we've got to see what accommodates the people. When we get them out there, you want them comfortable. Of course, like I say,
Well, I think that if we, look at the sections closest to the river, I think is what you said you really want. We're not too crazy about, or it's not that necessary if we're going to cut parts of this project to do the part that's in yellow, or right parallel to 133. It's more like by the river. We can get estimates, section from the current boardwalk to the gazebo, from the first gazebo to the first indent back to shore, from the back to shore part back to the next gazebo, and then from there to the parking lot. Just figure out how much it's going to cost for 6 feet and 8 feet, so we can kind of see how far we can go. And then we can look at trying to go back to 133, because I know we're going to have joggers that want to do the loop. So, but I mean, that could be something we address later.
and I think if we make it wider and people are comfortable to go on it, if we can't complete a complete loop, at least the boardwalk's wide enough that people walk to the end and just walk back.
We're having opposite traffic on next to each
Yeah.
other.
That was my understanding, that we were gonna make it wider and not do a loop.
And if we
Put the
don't,
money
if we
towards-
decide not to do the loop, then the rest of the property that we have for the solid land, we can actually develop into different things.
Yeah,
Maybe make it open more to the public and areas they can go sit. And that's something we're gonna have to sit down and look at also, because we have, and Olin, I think these, in some of those areas, a right substantial amount of dry land in pieces of it.
There is a little bit, anyway. On what you're calling the River Road side of the yellow part of the trail,
Right.
that area is pretty much, it's all usable land, so it would be maybe only a little bit, depending on, it would need to be routed within the area that would be upper elevation, as opposed to lower or near the edge of the water, or basically the property line runs along the normal high water line, which is the edge of the river.
Yeah.
And, but most of that yellow area is considered inside the property line, so it would be higher than the normal high water of the river. So that would be the usable area.
I know there's a few places in there, and we're trying to look for some possible Civil War mounds that are there. Because, you know, we want to keep it as natural as we can. We want to make it, even if we put if we didn't do the complete loop, we still want that frontal part on the river where people can go to it. And it'd be a shame for people not being able to utilize it or see it, because there's some nice pieces in there where we make it into just an access where people go see it, a little area that they want to have a little picnic or something, or just go sit down and look at the river from it.
Well, I mean, you could always have a walking path from that river walk part on the river to the mounds, and you could have, you know, things cited. There's a Civil War mound. There's, you know, whatever, to identify certain areas they can look at.
If y'all are looking at, I think there, if we agree, and anybody speak in on this now, because we're looking at whatever we build, we want it to be nice, professional, and comfortable for the people when they go out, especially since we're gonna put it out basically on the river. And it's got to be able to sustain some punishment, because we know how that river can get sometimes. But at the same time, we want it to be enjoyable, so people go out there and have some room and get around. And if we do put those two gazebos out there, we know people are gonna go out there and see it and use it. And if that's all we can build, the money we got, we'll build it. And then if we get money, if we want to close and loop, start looping around, then we can do that. If not, we'll look at other things along the whole wooded area that goes back in there. Maybe we can make some other kind of access for the public, or something that we can utilize to make it into something. We may not want a path there.
One thing I would like to chime in about, I know there's a lot to think about as far as the width, to kind of think about what this could look like in your head. So a standard sidewalk is usually 5, maybe 6 feet. And if you think about on the sidewalk, there's enough room for really one person to pass another, one wheelchair for sure. But once if you're looking at a 6-foot wide trail over a body of water, it would be hard for a wheelchair and a person to pass. And not that this would happen on a regular basis very often, but 2 wheelchairs would not be able to pass. So the multi-use paths that are going in, those will be 10 feet wide. And one of the reasons why they do that is for enough traffic to be able to pass. So the 10-foot wide path, 2 people can easily pass side by side, so 4 people wide, 2 wheelchairs can go past each other. It's that 10-foot wide is ideal, which is also the budget buster. But going back to what you're thinking, total approach or quality, I will help you find the money to make a 10-foot wide path. So I'm totally with what you're
The
saying.
one in Charlotte, how wide is that
That one,
I believe that one is 12, yeah,
one? What now, 12 feet?
it was
Is that
very
12
wide.
feet?
uh-huh.
That is
I'll
wide.
double check it and report back to you on that.
Now, Campbell had something to say one time about the width of the walkways create some problems for the fish. So I don't know what we'll get from them until we put the design out there and see what kind of feedback we're gonna get from CAMA. are we creating some problems they're gonna give us because it's too wide? They claim it shades the area too much and creates a problem. I think in the marsh area, it really didn't matter, they didn't hit us, well, no, that's the reason we didn't go, had something to do with the reason the other one's not as wide as we wanted it, but it was also cost. Because Campbell said something about the width and how it affected the fishery part of the water. But I'm sure there's got to be some way that, I've seen walkways, and Shalote's got their walkway, but does theirs actually go over the water? So if it does, I mean, there's a way they're gonna permit it, we'll just have to find out and get with them and ask them. So, I guess what we're trying to do, Commissioner, we need guidance on how we're gonna move forward with it. Do y'all think we should stay and maybe look at the quality of the walkway on the river instead of going with the complete U-loop right now? Because we know the cost of this, looking at some cost projections, is high. Matter of fact, some of the costs of the width, we're looking at $2.4, $2.5 million. Well, we know what we actually got in the bank is 1.2 million. But if we spend that, and we do get a grant, then we might boost up, we may get 2 million or better overall we can put in it. But still, we want something that looks good, that's quality, we know it's gonna last. If we cut down on maintenance, we'll save money in the long run. We've got to have the ability, because if we do decide at the same time, if we want people out there after dark, it's got to be lit. We've got to have security cameras out there so we can see what's going on. I would definitely not let anybody walk out there at nighttime and it's dark. And not having the ability to have some observation that we can see what's going on in case something happens.
Should we just ask staff or the plant or the Parks and Rec board to give us their feedback at our March meeting?
Yes, and also, in the interim, we'll be meeting with CAMA because really, that's
I would want that.
the deciding factor as to,
As far as width.
right.
And based on that feedback, then we have to narrow the scope of decision.
Yes.
Okay,
I think,
that's my recommendation.
yeah, we got, I think we have to get a pretty projected route that we want to take.
Okay.
Because as close as we're gonna be trying to get from the actual, where that marsh ends and the actual river starts, where we want to walk. Because at low tide, it'll actually be over mud instead of water. And of course, we have to know the size of the pilings, everything got to go in, the depth they got to go. We've got some idea what our fishing pier we got out there, how deep those pilings have to go, and they're pretty deep. One, we want to make sure the boardwalk's gonna stay, and not going anywhere.
Not going.
And, I think when they put the one in that we have right now, the way they did it, they didn't get bogged down that much as far as the depth of the water. Because in the marsh, and they did it to make, I think, low tide, a lot of it. So, this way, if y'all are happy with that, we can push for that, wait for the March meeting, get the feedback, let's decide. We get to think about, I think discussion right now is important, because once we make our decision, we need to speed this up as quick as we can. Go ahead and get it plotted out, the length we want it, style we want it. And if y'all been out and seen the Shalote one, I do like that. It is nice. We can build it to that design with the same material they build it with. It's gonna be safe. You ain't gotta worry about somebody crawling through a child getting through these slats and falling into water. And we have the ability also that we need wiring that goes out on it for the lighting if when we want it.
we were talking about, this happened to yesterday with some of the internet people with some of our sound systems. They were talking about solar, hooking cameras and lights to solar, so you might be able to save on wire, putting solar out.
Same thing with solar lighting, it's come a long way. Solar lighting is really good.
Isn't that what
I
we
know
have
have
on the new
trees.
dock?
And they're attaching the solar panels to the cameras. Yeah, I know how to.
Isn't solar what we have on the new dock?
Yeah, the lights, yeah.
They're all solar.
I just want to make sure we get good feedback. I mean, I'm all for it if we would do it. I still have some hesitancy, but I know a lot of things have changed in the solar world. But there's also, they have some issues, everything that. I'm sure I want to go out there and everything black out, you can't get it back up.
Well, they were talking about corrosion in contacts too, that's the downside.
I just clicked on the one for, I think it was WCT, that said July.
Salt has a tendency to attack
I clicked on
everything.
a different one.
There's more salt getting in that river, as time's going on, you can tell that from all the
That one
cypress
didn't
trees
play.
dying on that
And then
river.
I tried another one.
So, I think that's something well worth looking at. If we can provide the solar, that's constant, keep it lit, I'd be all for it. But I know solar has some limitations. Plus the maintenance on it after a period of time also.
Do they have to be clean?
They have to be, they like everything else, the maintenance on it is still there. On the solar panels, if I'm not wrong, they have to be clean. Does anybody know anything about the solar and the panels and the life expectancy on them at all?
My neighbor works for the big solar company that's here in town, that's building the building as soon as you cross the bridge. I can reach out to him and see if we can just get some industry information and see what that could look like.
I don't have a problem with going that route, you know, but, to be honest with you, sometimes that solar is not cheaper. I don't fund it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an option, but the discussion we had yesterday, they're pretty
You can just play it without the sound.
positive
so you
about
can see
solar
the
and the
picture.
direction it's going, so it's just an option, you can save a lot from the wiring. And about power supply, that's the other thing we had to worry about, the power supply.
I can tell you that the large solar farms that you see, you know, out in the field have 30-year life. The panels do. I don't know if the smaller things are different.
Yeah, I think one thing I look at is, one thing they don't talk about a lot, which they have, you know, as far as maintenance. They have maintenance that has to be done more on the solar panel, and you gotta keep them clean, because, you know, they get stuff in them, or the salt really gets into it, and it's like everything else, it's gonna corrode and you lose your connections. They feed batteries, and batteries corrode. But it's something worth looking at. We can take a look at it and see. I think technology changed a whole lot from when I was dealing with them. But any more questions or anything about that, we'll just go forward. Live feed, this is from the
That was just
slope.
a video of the new river walk and new park there. Owen, as far as we know, we do not have any, our camera permit does not extend that far. It stops at the end of the current boardwalk, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, any new application
Right.
for anything in addition to what's there now would be an additional camera permit.
Okay.
So we gotta deal with Cameron anyway and get with them and find out, you know, whatever width of bridge, walkway we decide to put there, they're gonna have input, and we gotta see what whole hoops we gotta jump through to satisfy them and what they'll allow us to put out there. They may confine us too, but we won't know till we get into it. And I think part of Cam also, they realize why we're doing it, that's more public interest in the natural system we have in the river, so people can enjoy it. want to preserve it more, so hopefully that'll be a help to us. So, staff, y'all have any more questions, or we need?
No, sir. I think Mr. Goodlow is ready to report to you on the Eagles Island item.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Owen Gidlow. And we have the Eagles Island area that has been in the town's window for the last year or more since I had updated the original Eagles Island ownership back in 2014, and again updated it in 2019. And we now have updated it again with all the owners with the exhibit that I provided for this evening. And the town of Leland has extended their jurisdiction and zoning into, there are 3 different parcels that are identified in the blue on top, and they are within the town of Leland. And the town of Belville owns and has jurisdiction down below 17 that sticks out about a quarter mile into Eagles Island. And from that point, the rest of it is either in the county jurisdiction, and that extends all the way out until you get to New Hanover County, which is up near the battleship. And the parcels that are within the county to the south are basically the one large tract that you see there is the North Carolina, or I'm sorry, it's the United States Bridge Commission. And if you have that exhibit,
The other map.
that if you would bring that up, and the other parts of
The one
that.
that says Belville zoning right there on that tab.
If you could zoom in on that area within the circle there would be good. So we have the Eagles Island, if you could pull that over to the left, Sharon. There you go. It's the Maritime Commission that has the large tract to the south. And the State Ports Authority are on the other side to the north of that parcel on just above Richmond or Redmond Creek. And there is a small parcel that is the North Carolina State Highway Commission, which is NCDOT now. And the parcel that is highlighted in blue, that is within the jurisdiction of the town of Belville, is owned by the New Hanover Soil and Water Conservation District, along with the town of Leland. And those 3, the parcel that says 038000025 is basically one big property, and it's spread over 3 different types of parcels because it was split up by the highway. So the up a little bit higher, if you would, those 3 that say 025 on it, and that includes the part in purple down below 17, are all one parcel, and they consist of about 169 acres, plus or minus the highway. So, and that, the northern part of that is within the town of Leland. The parcel to the right, ending in 002, is also within the town of Leland. So all of those have been annexed into the town, and everything to the south, north, and east are still within Brunswick County. And So the jurisdictional nexus for the town of Belville from the point identified at the end of the purple parcel there. 1 mile radius is the extension that was asked to be identified that would cover a lot of the properties over toward the battleship. And the battleship is up to the north in upper right-hand part of that exhibit right there. So you see the USS North Carolina, BB-55, that's the berth, and the Battleship Commission owns that property, which is in New Hanover County. So originally it was thought to find out what the nexus would be to try to get from the town of Belville into annex any one of those parcels and how it could be accomplished. And that was the result of why we created this map and identified the owners within Eagle's Eye.
You done, we appreciate that too. What we're trying to look at, everything, at one time, we wanted to do our extended walkway from, you know, our multi-pass from here all the way over to the battleship. And we looked at it, we originally talked to the State Port Authority, which was going to give us basically a lifetime right to use the land and bring it into our city limits, which we didn't get to that. But what we're looking at doing right now, Leland is basically north of the causeway, that property there, they have brought in under their conservational, I forgot the name they use, bring that property into their city limits, so-called, to preserve it.
It's their conservation district.
Yeah, their conservation district. Well, town of Belville want to create a conservation district, and we're gonna start contacting, most of these owners on the right side, they're actually conservation groups anyway. They're trying to preserve Eagle Island, preserve everything around except for the owners that are right on the riverfront. We don't perceive it's gonna be a lot of headaches to get them to agree to come into the city limits of our town, because basically it doesn't cost them anything. It just, they'll be in our city limits. We start a conservational district that says all we'll do if we bring it in the city, we'll preserve it to keep it in its natural state. That's what they want anyway. It just gives them more protection. So we want to start working on that, make some calls. The State Port Authority, I don't think will be much of a headache. We have to contact some of these other groups, and I think there's one family that owns one section in there, but it's they're holding that land as a conservational area. They want to protect it in its natural deal. And I'm sure if we told them we'd just like to bring it in the city, we'll help them preserve it. So we need to do that. We'd like to extend our city limits all the way to the Cape Fear River and bring that in and bring all of the south end of Eagle Island into the town. And it's just a matter of getting on it, working it, start making some phone calls, which I want to start doing this coming week, and start the wheels turning. And contacting all these individual groups that own it right now. And all we're asking them, which it shouldn't be very hard, is just to come in and see the limits. And then the town manager, the commission don't have a problem with it. We just need to figure out what we need to do, how this verbally is set up as a conservational district, and how we get the ability to do that, just like what Leland's doing.
I think we already have the pre-work done for that. If you remember, a few years ago, we attempted to establish a zoning district that was called Resource and Recreation, and it had all of the parks that were within the town's limits and a conservation district in that area. It did not pass at that time, but we still have all of that pre-work done.
If we can do
And we
it,
can
get it set
improve
up
on
and
that.
create that entity to where we can have an official ability to bring that in when we call these people, we do have a sanitary district. We're creating, not sanitary, environmental district, so we can bring them in. Because now of our ability to bring it in, we don't have to worry about the distance on it right now, because we had an exemption from the state that we can bring. We don't have to worry about none of this environmental thing. It's different anyway. It's not like the normal annexation process. You come in, we're looking at the state signing it, or one owner of the land signing off just to come in and see the limits. Just a matter of getting in touch with them and getting the wheels rolling.
Is that RL property the one that the big developments proposed on?
Now that's in New Hanover County. That's on the north side of the battleship.
There was one on the north side and one on the south side.
And that piece on the south side, of course, that's all privately owned by businesses, I guess businesses. Anything on the exact riverfront, now when you get not too far from that riverfront, you got all these different entities that it can only be for environmental purposes. They can't build on it anyway. And that's what we're trying to take into the city. The other sections, I'm sure we're gonna have a lot harder time getting them in the city limits. Of course, in New Hanover County, we won't deal with it anyway, because Leland's already pretty much extended their fingers out right up to the New Hanover County line on the north side of 74 going in there, all the way up to the New Hanover County line. But if we don't take that in, Leland will take it in. They'll eventually take everything they can get using their conservational side, and they'll pull it in. And I'm sure they probably already contacted some of these people now. So we got to speed the wheels up. Since our city limits actually on the south side, at least we crossed the river to that point, but you said about a quarter mile over.
Yes, sir.
Our city limits touches the Port Authority's land. And that's gonna give us a foothold on that side where we have more legal authority to take it in than Leland does. If we had to use it. So, but I'm sure they're trying to figure out now how to jump the road and get the rest of the property.
Athena, you said that there was a proposal before to our conservation zone, you called it the recreation?
Yes, it was called Resource and Recreation, and at that time, we were gonna bring the Old Town Park, the town of Belville Park, all of that into one zoning district, but it didn't pass at that time. It was kinda close to election time, and some people in Old Town did not want the Old Town Park to be changed to that zoning district, and so we put it on the shelf for that period of time, but we do have the pre-work for a conservation district already established.
How much work would it be to get that ready to come to the board so we could vote on it?
I can check with Jeff, and that was at least 5-6 years ago, so there'll probably be, we need to make sure we do some updates, and with 160D, make sure everything conformed, run it through Norwood. I think possibly it could be ready by April or May, and I'm just saying that because Kavanaugh, they're working on a big project right now.
Let's see if we can go ahead and get that wheel started. That'll give us enough time to start making the phone calls we need to make, get the state to see how, if they're gonna talk with us. I put in a call to the director of the State Port Authority so we can get the wheel started, contact the other people on that land. And if we have the conservational district that we can bring it into, I don't think they'd have an issue with that. That's just more protection for them.
We could argue that we can bring it into our park system right now.
Sure.
So we'll see how they feel about it. That's not gonna cost them anything. It ain't like they're paying taxes on it. Plus it'll close the loop. It extends our ability to go out all the way to the Cape Fear River, which in the long run will be a plus for us.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, could I just ask Adrian, was any of the land on the side that the mayor's speaking of, was that identified in the project that they wanted to do for the Eagles Island Park? Or was most of that in New Hanover County? Because we are a member of the Eagles Island Coalition, and they have a subcommittee that they've established. They have not dissolved the coalition to my knowledge at this point, and they're trying to work on a big project called the Eagles Island Park.
So there's the Eagles Island Task Force, and they partnered with the Coastal Design Lab at NC State, and they created this book. Do you guys have an extra copy of this?
I don't think so.
I need to make sure I get you guys a copy. But this book is the Eagles Island Nature Park. Now granted, New Hanover County has not adopted this, Brunswick County has not adopted this. This just came out not long ago, and it's really just a vision. But if you are looking for like visuals of what like a true nature park could look like, places to paddle, places to walk, places to learn about history and culture and all that other stuff, there is a lot of visuals in here that identifies, you know, some obstacles that need to be overcome.
Is that our boardwalk in that picture?
No, this one's all drawn in.
I think if we get it, if we can take all that area, if they allow it to come in, then we set down these groups and the opportunities expand on what we could talk, like what you're talking about, Adrian, is getting it to where people can actually go in, see the natural surroundings we have, and build into that. But we got to get in our city limits first. Because if we don't, then we lose our ability pretty much to have any input into it. And Leland will take it. I mean, if it's just a matter of time frame that they're trying to move with the sanitary, sanitary with the environment. With what they're doing right now, if you'll watch everywhere they're going, any wetlands or anything they have, they're trying to put it into that district and using that to get it into their city limits. And if we don't do the same, we will lose it. They will take it.
I'm sure they're working on it now.
And so we need to, and like I say, we got the exemption on how far we can basically go out. And with this, like I say, it's not complicating, like you got to go out and get 1,000 signatures. The state signs off and you got it. These groups sign off and you got it. So we need to start working on it as quick as we can, but we need a selling point to convince them why it would be good to come into our city limits. Now the state, it's not really that hard. But these other groups may be a little bit more difficult to convince them they need to be in our city limits. And what we can actually help them with.
Well, I know too, within the Vision 2030 plan, you know, it shows, you know, extending the trail over to, you know, the battleship. So if you guys need any illustrations or something out of this to use as talking points when you're communicating with whoever about, you know, the beneficials of a conservation district, let me know. I can see if I can pull
Yeah,
something
we're gonna
out.
start getting them, and hopefully we may, if it's okay with y'all, with that, we can get these groups and contact them all, see maybe if we can get a group to come over here and sit down and talk with us. And, even we might get you in on that too, and Robin, you also, and we sit down and, see if we can convince them, to go ahead and just come into the city limits, into a conservational group, district, and give them more protection and ways that we can work so the public can enjoy it, if that's what they want it for, and preserve it.
Yeah, I think our goals parallel their goals. That's what we need to do, is make sure they understand that there's no ulterior motive to creating districts.
Right.
I think, that's something we need to work on fairly quickly. It's kind of on the burner after I read and study what's going on with our sister town and the rate they're taking property in now, putting it into that conservation district. I know where they're heading with it. And that's a good way that they can just sell off the whole area and have their city limits pretty much just because they claim they're going to preserve it. So we'll start that process. I think it'll have, in the long run, I think it's got some great potential for us, especially on, drawing people to the area, getting more people interested in the natural surroundings that we have. And like I said, it'll put us, we'll have an influence all the way over to the Picture River. So you think we might have some, you said April timeframe, we may
Yes,
give you enough time we can work on that.
we can definitely send that to the planning board at their next meeting and have that as an item that they can begin to work on as far as,
Try to,
you know,
get that, if we get a commitment out of some of these people and start calling them, when we close that loop and make that happen fairly quick.
mhm.
But I think our time, we're gonna have to pick up the pace a little bit, and hopefully we can get a couple positions where we have additional staff to work on it. So, any other questions or anything from the commissioners? Are y'all in sync with this, that we, move forward with it to see if we can bring all that into the city limits?
Syncaroo.
I think it'd be a good thing for us, I really do. Something I wish we'd have jumped on when, earlier. But we got sidetracked with a lot bigger issue we had to handle for a couple of years, and then we're back on track. And I'm sure we'll be needing your help, and,
Glad to do it anytime, Mr.
getting
Mayor.
all this out, and maybe we can help preserve all this and, get it to where people go over and enjoy it now. And like I say, that multi-path, I'd love to see it go over, go all the way down to the battleship. I'd love all this to tie in, not only with us, tie in with Leland also, and here in the county, where everybody can get out there and enjoy it, and have a path and the ability to do it. And I think that'll happen over time if we push it. Any other questions from anybody? I think we're good on directions
Yes.
so far.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Owen.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to, 3C. About adopting an ordinance to use for the American Rescue Funds to complete the broadband infrastructure and cybersecurity projects. And you want to touch on base on that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. We have seen the estimates at previous meetings for these projects, and now it's time for us to adopt the individual ordinances so that ATMC can begin working on this. So we ask that you adopt these ordinances 2022-01 and 02 so that we can move forward.
Okay, all these ordinance, the 01 and 02,
Yes, sir.
is that what we need to adopt?
Yes, and 01 is actually for the broadband expansion for the part of phase 2 of the Riverwalk. So that will cover the broadband, extending the Wi-Fi from where it ends now in the park, which is just short of the Riverwalk Trail, and going past the Duke Energy Pavilion all the way down once the boardwalk is built, so that people will be able to enjoy the Wi-Fi on the boardwalk. I'm sure they will want to do that. We also want to get clarification from the state on whether they would allow us to do that for our multi-use path, because we don't actually own the property for the multi-use path. So we would need to get their permission for that. So that's why we haven't included that particular ordinance in this group. But as soon as we get clarification that we can,
If y'all looked over this,
Adopt
good,
that.
this had to do with the rescue funds that the federal government lowered to the state. So we get it in 2 phases. Right now we have $300-some thousand. The next phase we'll get an additional $300-some thousand. And this is part of the use that they're allowing us to spend the money on. To designate the funds They're more specific, we don't get to spend it on what we want. Say we didn't want that, something else, we got the guidelines we have to stay on how to spend this money. And I think this is also a good thing, to expand our Wi-Fi. I think, is that part of the, that's the next piece of it. I'll let we stay. Y'all have any questions about that? I say this is the part of $300-some thousand that's allocated to the town, and this is part of projects spending that money.
Would you like a motion, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, if there's no question, have a motion that we accept ordinance number 2022-01.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. And that ordinance is a capital project ordinance to appropriate funds and raise revenues for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. Okay, we'll move on to the 02, capital ordinance appropriate funds and raise revenues for the fiscal year beginning. Base the same, July 1, 2021, ending June 30th of 2022.
Motion to approve is written.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Those are the ordinance. Do we need, we don't need a consistency statement on this, do we?
No, sir.
Okay.
But we will, just to reassure you, we will make sure that we do not spend these funds on any other items other than what's designated by the ARP, because we do not want to be in the position of having to pay it back.
Yeah, like I say, we have certain guidelines on how that money can be spent. I'm sure staff will keep us addressed on, the money that we have to get feedback anyway from them that we're spending it properly. Once this is allocated, I think, like I say, ATMC is working with us on this. If we're gonna have it, let's have quality. They know what they're doing. And I think they're working with us real well on this. Of course, they have a lot of benefit from it too. But at the same time, it gives us a lot more capability, and I think people are gonna enjoy it.
They've also encouraged us, and Adrian can tell you about it, to apply for a grant, and it's $25,000.
We're actually waiting for confirmation, it may be a little bit more than that.
Oh, okay, that's great.
From ATMC,
Yes.
well, what's y'all saying, every little bit counts, no matter what you get. And like I say, we're making some great ability where it's our cyber security, Wi-Fi ability, our cameras in the park, that's gonna give us a whole lot better surveillance, and our ability to see what's going on and improve our capabilities throughout our park system as well as up here at Town Hall. So in the long run, it's gonna be a big addition, a great addition that we're gonna need to improve the town's ability to make sure we are protected, and that the citizens, with the Wi-Fi system, everything they got, they can go out and you can sync up, sit there and right in the park, enjoy yourself, and have the ability to sit there and, of course, I used to say laptops, now it's iPhones and everything else you got, just sync up and do it. So, let me see, any more questions on that, or Madam Town Manager, anything else on that issue?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay, next would be item 3D. Request wait options regarding proposed services can be offered at the park by outside contractors or by in-house staff. You want to elaborate on that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Ever since we have opened our kayak launch, we have had several inquiries about various services that may be provided at the park, whether it be kayak tours, summer camps, even groups that come in and maybe children play soccer in the park or taekwondo. So the park director actually met with one gentleman, Mario Barron, and that's the first proposal that you see in your book. He has done kayak launch, or kayak rentals in the park in Ocean Isle Beach before. He's done it in a mobile system, and he's also done it where they construct the facility, on the park property. So Jim can elaborate a little bit more on what he would like to do, but we've had several individuals contact us about the same thing. We'd like to know if this is something that you would like to pursue. And if it is, would you prefer that an outside company do it, or would you prefer that it be done in-house? We'd like to see if you can narrow down some of those details for us so we can move forward and possibly put out a bid, if that's something that you'd like.
Is there a recommendation that staff has on what correction you prefer and the reasoning behind it?
I think that a lot of people are definitely going to be wanting to have kayak tours in the park, and also there would need to be some type of education that went along with that. So I think it's something definitely that we need to move towards for the future. I don't think it's something that we need to rush into. It's something that we need to make sure that everything's all lined up and it's done properly. And it could be mobile in the beginning. We could test it out, for a certain amount of months. And then if it's something that we wanted to do on a more permanent basis, or once the Riverwalk was finished and we might have an additional launch, there might be another area where we might want a permanent rental center. So all that is up to you.
That echoes what Commissioner Long asked earlier. Does the Parks and Rec Board have any recommendation on any of these three?
Yes, the Parks and Rec Board is all for all of these scenarios.
Well, actually, they don't know about Mario. They've only heard from Kaylin. She does kayak tours. She's very knowledgeable about eco, and she's willing to do summer camps in our park. She would come and give you guys a demonstration or presentation. I was very, very impressed with her presentation and what she can bring to our park. Mario was not presented to the Parks and Rec Board, but he did come down to the park. I showed him the areas that he would be able to kind of utilize to use as far as a rental. He was thinking about building and all this, and I agree with Athena, like start off slow, maybe, with a trailer or something to see what kind of interest you get before you invest in all this. And but he's all gung-ho for renting kayaks and paddle boards and stuff. But Kaylin her thing is just to bring in like 8 people and give a tour through Eagle Island. She's very, very familiar with Eagle Island. She brings a lot. I mean, you really need to hear her presentation. You'll be floored by it, what she does. But Mario is more of a rental business. He wants to rent kayaks.
And I
I don't
think
know if
that,
we should do it in-house, because, I'm sorry, Tina.
that's okay.
I don't know if we want to take on the liability and responsibility and having somebody there all the time to rent them, that's one thing I'm not sure about, as far as in-house.
Yeah, I think what Bethel Wellington, I know they used to have over at Greenfield Lake, somebody rented pedal, I think, stuff and boats. Is that run by the town or is it private?
That one is city owned and operated, so city employees, you have somebody out there, there's a little hut more or less, and you can rent out paddle boats. And an idea that maybe a good one is to contact Brunswick County, because I do know there's somebody that rents out kayaks, and you just meet them at the Brunswick Nature Park. And they basically put the kayak in the water for you. You don't have to carry it around or haul it or anything, and you kayak, and then they come back and they pick it up. You can even leave it on the side there if you're ready to go home. But they got the big old trailer where they can carry, 6, 8, 12 kayaks at one time, and they're portable.
And I think, if we do that, the only thing, I always have issues, because we have issues every time we we put a private entity into the public park, it creates some issues that you have to deal with. I think it's a good idea. I mean, draw a lot more people that want to come down and kayak and have tours, that we can get, if they want to go over to Eagle Island, people get interested in it. It'd be a good thing. It might be worth trying on a trial basis, but I think on a trial basis, the guy could set up kind of what he said he wanted to do over in that corner.
Right.
It wouldn't be a permanent structure, but he'd have the ability to rent out, because, you know, his interest is making money. Our interest is that the people are enjoying themselves.
Activities.
So, you know, people's never used the kayaks, of course, they're gonna have some training. If somebody's gonna lead them out on, doing some tours, then, like I say, you gotta have the right person to do it, because you can't get hurt or injured if you haven't done that a lot. Eagle Island does have a lot of alligators, which you got to have somebody that knows the area.
Madam Town Manager, what is it that you would ask us to do with this item tonight?
If you would like to pursue doing the kayak rentals, we can create a bid so that we can have companies bid on the services. And then you can select a contractor based on that. Or if you'd like to have it in-house, we can look at having a part-time recreation assistant, which we were already looking at anyway, or somebody that would manage all of that.
And we do that also. Go ahead, sir.
I would prefer to get a recommendation from the Parks Board on the one that they haven't heard before we do anything.
I don't think it's this particular individual, we're looking at the service. So they're okay with renting kayaks. It's just how you want the kayaks to be rented.
It seemed like the third one though was more, it wasn't as much a rental as it was a educational
Yes.
I
opportunity.
think we should do is give you the idea of what we're looking for, and I think what I'm hearing is the consensus is that it shouldn't be a permanent structure, it should be a temporary structure, be something that's a trailer. How often could they provide the service, and what kind of services would they provide? And then that way, if we can keep that kind of coalesce together and come to us, or, you know, I guess once we go to the Park and Rec Board and get their blessing, then come up here and we can kind of see which one it is that we think would be beneficial for the park. But I don't want to, and pair it with the mayor said, I don't think we need to get into, like we had with the rowing club, just a full commitment, you know, going on out there. And then, you know, we have to back off of some stuff, so baby steps moving towards. The only concern I have about a kayak rental thing being permanent structure is we are planning on expanding the park. And I think there would be a better location where we could actually put a permanent structure instead of crowding the dock. It is a fishing dock after all. So we don't want to have like a big structure there taking away from the amenities of fishing. Bring somebody out that maybe can kind of rent some kayaks when they want to do that, and that'd be fun.
Yeah. While we're doing that, stay within the guidelines. I would prefer we stay with kayaks and paddle boards, no jet skis. I see what happens with jet skis, I think y'all do too, in a lot of areas. We don't have the ability to enforce bad habits. People that ride those things, especially younger ones, it creates problems. I know we got the two jet ski launch things at the end of it, but I'd like to stay within the paddle boards and the kayaks, if y'all are levy with that, and keep jet skis out of it. So we, if you can get that presented to the Parks and Rec Board, as well as, I think we need to get them here and make a presentation to us too, if they want to be the group that comes up, and if we allow them to have a temporary rental thing there, let's see how it goes. But I'm sure they'll do some of their own advertising anyway to start drawing people in, and we'll see how it fits.
Just that, those are two different entities, like the one guy just wants to rent kayaks, be there all the time. The other woman comes once a week or twice a week for a few hours and does tours. She brings her own boats and people, eight people, and she does tours, and then they leave. So, kind of two different.
So I think we need to figure out exactly what we want. Do
Right.
we want to have just somebody's out there renting, or do we want to have somebody providing a touring?
And once you set those parameters, then we place a bid, and individuals bid on that, and then you pick your contractor.
Because we have to remember, I don't care who you put out there, how they say, the town ends up being responsible. We're the one that's gonna sue if something goes wrong. They'll
Definitely.
sue us both.
So one other component, if you guys don't mind me jumping in again, with the second option, like you were talking about, you can have an outfitter provide canoes, kayaks, paddleboards, as in they drop them off at the kayak launch, and then they come back and pick it up later, which means the people that are on the river are not with the owner of the company. And then the one that you're talking about is where the owner of the company is saying, hey, let's go on a tour, and I'm gonna talk you through the ecosystem and this whole educational thing. So there's a little bit of two different experiences there. One is with somebody else, who's actually owns the kayak you're in, and then the other one is, hey, enjoy the river, we'll see you back in 2 hours, or whatever it may be.
Exactly.
So that's something else to keep in mind when you're going to bid, is asking if that's gonna be a guided tour, or just a handoff of the equipment.
Okay, I'm seeing this in front of, what is the, how do you pronounce that?
Lightning fit.
Is it actually Fit Run Club? What's that about?
This is an organization that would like to come out and work with children and have them run in the park. So this goes along with the groups that have approached us about having children do soccer in the park, having children do taekwondo in the park. And these are organizations that are for-profit. Traditionally, we have not allowed for-profit companies to come in and use the park in that way. And so we're just coming before you again to ask you if that's something that you would like to start doing, provided that they have insurance and provided that they pay us a fee for the use of the park.
What do you recommend?
I think that there's a great amount of risk associated with it. They definitely will have to be insured to the utmost level, because if you've got several different groups of children in the park doing all these types of activities on a weekly basis, somebody's going to get hurt and somebody's going to sue us, no matter what. But with that being said,
And not only that, they take up a big chunk of space when they're out there.
mhm,
That means the general public is gonna be an issue.
Keep the park apart.
I don't have a problem with it, because I think that we can regulate who goes out there. We don't have to have all of them out there at the same time. They provide their own insurance, they sign a waiver that removes us from responsibility because they're with the private entity. I think we underutilize the park. I think we start seeing people out there using it recreationally until we can get manpower at the town where we can provide those. That's the bottom line, is we don't have the manpower or the money to actually do it ourselves. So if a private entity wants to come here, we can kind of regulate and control it and make sure that they do everything above board. I don't think it's a bad idea, and it gets us better notoriety for what we're using the park for.
It's known as Parks and Rec, right? So it's
Exactly.
recreation.
And I mean, you go out in the park, man, you see a couple people walking around, that field's hardly ever used. There's hardly anybody over there, so I think it's a good idea to kind of at least have some recreation out there.
would you like for us to get some feedback from some other towns on whether they allow that type of activity? I know that they allow daycares to come out and definitely use their playgrounds, on a regular basis. So
Let's
Just-
check with them.
just to see what
what's
other
going
towns
on.
do.
I know the county, I don't think they allow that. I think their parks are pretty well regimented. We need to check the county also. I mean, I want out, but it's not, I don't want kids out there. I just don't want too many private entities that are in it for the money out there.
Like I said, we can regulate, you can say, well, you can come out on a Tuesday, and that's your day. And then you have like another group come out on a Thursday, and that's their day. and you just, they just don't come out there whenever they feel like it, and you regulate it, you charge them.
Yeah,
Until we can get on our feet and actually have people out there to provide these things.
What's its income for the park?
I'd say look at it, if it's scheduled, and we control that schedule, and we do a trial run,
I can manage that schedule if you want.
because the thing is, you get a lot of young kids out there, if they're not controlled. I ain't got a thing against kids, but I know what happens.
Well, that's where the licensing goes into. If they're not doing what they can do, we just cut them off.
Right.
Is there a way to go in like a survey out there on our social media and see how many people would be interested in other programs like this?
Absolutely. There's the polling feature on Facebook.
I felt like I went out in the park, I think it was Saturday. And you know where you do the drive-through along the fence, you go by where the bathrooms are. I see a SUV parked there. And all of a sudden I see a man along with 4 kids. Well, where are the 4 kids? They sitting on the asphalt behind the SUV, just drawing pictures everywhere with chalk. And I had to remind the gentleman that is part of the driveway of the parking system. It's not a place to stop your vehicle and let your kids get out and just start drawing on the asphalt. So that's the reason I'm always saying, anytime, and we all know that if you're gonna have it out there, you gotta have somebody supervising, and make sure it is supervised, and then we'll have a schedule that we can regulate it, we can give it a try and see what happens. But, like I say, anytime, and this is the problem I always have, I don't like private entities making money coming into the park, if that's all it's about. Because, they get paid for these kids, and they're trying to find locations that they can take them to, which is fine, but it creates other issues, and they don't care as much about your part. And, of course, I don't think, it's kind of hard to tear up grass and dirt.
Well, like I said, we can control that with licensing and permission. Yeah, and you can monitor it, and if they're not complying with what we want them to do.
And if they're benefiting from it, from profit, the town's gonna benefit from profit. They will pay to use it. And, so that's just something we have to look at, and we do a set of schedule that can be there, and start charging them to use it. If they're in it for the profit, the town should have some money to pay for maintenance and everything else we need to handle, take care of the park too. And if it keeps the children happy and they have fun, I don't have a problem with that at all. It's not the kids I'm worried about as much as I am the people that run it. Okay, I guess you can look at that and just get back with us.
We will do that.
And, if you would, I think if you could, basically run that by the Park and Rec Board too. Let's get all the input back, so we can come back, there's no lack, and y'all's recommendation also, when we take a look at it. Y'all, is everybody happy with that?
Perfect.
Okay. All right, we'll move, any other questions, staff or anything? Okay. Moving on to 4, the financial forecast, projected costs, update on grant applications and opportunities. Who's gonna handle that?
We talked about several grants already. Adrian, is there any other feedback that you have on this report that you sent?
You guys have a copy of this in your agenda packet, it's right behind the ordinances. There are several funding opportunities out there. I don't know how much in detail you want me to go into about each of these grants, but we can definitely say that it is like putting together a puzzle to figure out what allowable funds for this project can go towards that project, and leveraging funds and matching funds. But as far as the Riverwalk, you guys had talked about, looking at different, maybe mini phases within phase 2 to figure out how we can make the money go the furthest. We do have a Parks and Recreation Trust Fund pre-application date coming up, so that's March 15th. Something we could absolutely do that would be a very strong grant application, considering the cost estimates now over the 1.2 million from the SCIF grant. We can take the $1.2 million from the SCIF grant and leverage it towards the PARTIF. And something else that PARTIF will accept is the value of the land, which we got that appraisal done, I think it was right at $510,000 was the value of NCDOT's land. So we would actually be going to PARTIF leveraging about 1.7 million and asking for 500,000. And that wouldn't require the town to pull any money out from a different pot of money. So that's one that is kind of coming up soon. Now for the pre-application, I don't think we need to have the exact alignment. You know, we can say, hey, we're going to start where the Riverwalk currently ends, and we're going to follow the water. And, you know, put a line on the map and say, this is what we're going towards. But by May 2nd, when the final application's due, we need to really have that nailed down. And then the other moving piece in this is the Camel Water Access Grant. That's the one that funded the kayak launch that, you know, we just installed. That funding opportunity has come open again. We could use those funds to put in the parking lot at the northern end, and add another kayak launch at the northern end, but we would need the Riverwalk to hit there. You know what I mean? They're not going to pay for a parking lot if the Riverwalk doesn't connect to it. And if we don't have the funding for that section of the Riverwalk, then we're not going to pay for a kayak launch for something that doesn't have funding yet. So that's another little moving piece. And then so that Camel Water Access, the pre-application is April 22nd. And that gives us a little bit of time. And then that final application isn't until August 22nd. And it will be also in August or September that we will find out about the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant. So once we hear about that, then the next thing we could do is actually go to this Rural Economic Development Loan. So that is a grant up to $300,000 or a 0% interest loan up to $1 million. That's the same way that Shalom funded their Riverwalk. And we could look at something like that to fund the rest of the Riverwalk. And then hopefully that will get us to our, yes, yes. And then the other program that's in here, there is an AARP Community Challenge Grant. That's not a big pot of money. It's usually around $15,000-ish that they award, but that will pay for a lot of part components as well. So that's another option. And then the ATMC Connect Technology and Economic Development Grant, that is something that's open on a rolling basis. So whenever we can get our application in, we can. So now that we have an idea of where some other funds are going to go as far as technology upgrades, then we can kind of channel that back into next priorities and what's left. And that Rural Economic Development Loan, that is something that's actually due every quarter. So there's 4 times a year that that's available. So the best, you know, way to maybe consider that is wait until, maybe it would be in December by the time we know for sure that PARTIF and everything else is covered. But I would say it sounds like maybe not apply for that one by this March 31st deadline, just so we can let PARTIF shake out a little bit.
Well, that sounds good to me. I think, you know, different funding issues, like you say, Adrian, they're worth looking at, and if you feel like we have a shot at them, you know, we can apply for them. And, you know, like you said, I don't care whether it's $1,000 or $100,000, it's money that we can get, that we can spend on putting something back into our system. And there's one thing they'll say, if you don't apply, you ain't gonna get nothing. So you got to try anyway, and we appreciate it, we know you're good at it.
Thank you so much.
A lot.
Thank you so much.
Any questions from the commissioners, staff?
You still gonna buy those lottery tickets? Are you still gonna buy those lottery tickets?
Yeah, I told them, you know, I told her if I win the lottery, I'll go ahead and invest a couple million in the town.
There you go.
We won't have to worry about it. We'll go ahead and I'll pump enough in that we can get it done. But don't plan on my luck the way it runs.
Speaking of projected revenues,
Yes. Mr. Goodson has a report for us, finance report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
All right, you should have there in your paperwork there, it's a title of the report up the top, says monthly financial report, January 31st, 2022. And as you look at these numbers, realize, most of these are estimates that we're working off of at this point. We feel like they're pretty close, but they're not to the exact dollar, but it just kind of gives you an overview of where we're at this point. So as of January 31st, we had $1,896,332 in the bank, which really considered like general fund money. It's not PAL bill money or anything else, it's like general fund money. From that, I've subtracted these projects that we've got in progress, the multi-use path and these other two projects. And then we also have to set aside 8% of our budget by state statute. So the total money that we've kind of got set aside for projects and our reserves is $527,000. That would leave us like $1,369,000 left over hopefully by June 30th. In addition to that, we have our PAL bill funds, which is like $506,000. We have in our budget this year approximately $60,000 for street projects that we kind of have to spend or else we'll lose some of that money. We have to give it back if we don't spend so much each year. So that we've got about $506,000 for streets at this point. We got the ARP money at this point, $335,000, but again, most of that's been set aside for the projects. Two of them you just voted on tonight, and some other things. So overall, our funds would be right around $1,875,000. And two other things that are coming down the pike at some point here. The water access project that we just did, we're supposed to get refunded $191,550 worth of that money. And then we've got the SCIF money that's been set aside for us of $1.2 million. So like another $1,391,000 that we know should be coming in over the next period of time. So that leaves us about $3,267,000, and we know that just the park project would eat all that up. So anyway, just kind of a ballpark figure where we're at, what kind of funds that we're looking at that we have, and overview of the things that's going on. I put down at the very bottom of the page the outstanding obligations of the town at this point. The money that we still owe in the building here is $697,000, and we still have attorney fees of about $26,000 on those lawsuits that we've got. So we've got outstanding obligations about $723,000. Now the mortgage on the building is not due at this point. We pay monthly payment on that, so that's due over a long period of time still.
And I think overall, I'm more than satisfied that the worst thing you hate to see at the end of any time of the physical year stuff is when you're in the red and you're sinking. We're not sinking. The time we spend as we have the money, we haven't been in much debt other than for this land and building, which the interest rate we had here and what we paid for the land and building was really good, and we paid off in 15 years. But I think we've done good. I think there's some point in time where we'll get to a point where we have the ability that we can borrow money and pay it back and not have to worry about it, which will give us the ability to go after bigger projects and get the available money we need. And we'll have to decide when we get to that point. And the way I'm looking at it, probably with our downtown project and everything we're doing, we're probably going to have to do that. But I hope by that time we'll be at a point where, as far as getting a loan or the money, won't have a problem, and we'll probably have some good support from some other government entities that'll support us on and back us up when we have to borrow the money. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. Like I say, you always hate to owe money, but in this world today, if you're going to get these big projects, you're going to borrow money. There's no way around it.
Mayor, I'll just add two other things real quick. We got another check from the ABC board today of $172,000, and And,
I think the ABC board has been a blessing to the town. I hate COVID happened, but it sure picked up the drinking. I think the increase in alcohol sales has extremely went up because, you got more people staying home, relaxing, and they see that, love to drink their alcohol when they're home. And they're gonna stop and buy it. Projected sales, from what they're looking at, is not going down, it's still increasing. Some of the things they're doing, which is helping increase the amount of money they're able to give us, and that's buying in advance and storing the alcohol. Buy it when it's cheap, keep it, and then when you put it out there, you make more profit on what you sell. And that increases the amount of money we receive. So our ABC board is doing a fantastic job. And I won't get into that. I ain't gonna tell stories. We'll get up here and but we need to, if you get a chance, you see the ABC guys and the staff at work, so we need to thank them when we see them. They've done an outstanding job. They've kept their promises. As a matter of fact, I think they've exceeded what they told us they were going to do, and they continue to exceed that principle. They're working hard to do it.
Mayor, one other item I have too,
Yes, sir.
going along with ABC, our sales tax revenue is way above what we've budgeted so far for this year too, and it just keeps rolling in every month above what we expect it to be.
Well, that's unexpected pleasure also. I think one thing we're looking at, of course, what's projecting inflation is impacting a lot of people. The cost of gas is going up, food's going up, basically everything's going up. But what that normally hits, talking about if you get a pay increase or whatever, you're not on the winning side right now because pay's not increasing as fast as inflation. That means everybody's losing money. And issue we're gonna have to handle coming up to look at. So that's finishes 4A update, excuse me, yep. On projected revenues, and Madam Town Manager's got staffing needs that we're
Yes.
looking at.
Just wanted to let you know that the ABC board chairman projected that we would have an 11% increase in revenue for this coming fiscal year. Also, I've reached out to the manager of First Bank and asked her to give us a figure on how much we would potentially be able to borrow if we wanted to borrow some money. And as soon as our 21 audit is complete, which should be complete by the end of this month, there's going to be a percentage in that audit that will allow her to run those calculations for you. And yes, I do have some information in here on our upcoming staffing needs. I'm recommending a couple of positions. One of them is a part-time Parks and Recreation position to help Jim in the park. The park is growing, and with all these programs and other items that need to be managed, he really needs someone that he can depend on to help him with that. We already have in our current budget the funds for a planning position, and that position is already being advertised. We've recently put it on LinkedIn, and we've gotten some resumes in that we're reviewing at this time for that. So those funds are already designated in the budget. One position that I feel that we are in need of coming up in the immediate future is a finance director. With all of the projects that we're working on, with all of the reimbursements that have to be managed, reports for grants that have to be managed, and the different pots of money that need to be managed, we need a finance director. Now, currently we have someone that's working as a finance clerk in title, but technically they're actually processing permits and doing special event permits and that type of thing. So that kind of takes away from the finance duties that she should be actually focusing on. Of course, we would definitely want to have Kimmy around always for oversight, but for the day-to-day operations of our finances, keeping everything straight for our audit, managing all these pots of money for these grants, and it's only going to keep growing and getting worse. We need a finance person. So that's,
So we're looking at finance, but there's actually, we need a parks person, financial,
mhm.
and a planner.
Yes, and the planner's already being advertised. And moving forward,
What was the salary rate that we had on the planner?
it was around the 50 range,
Yeah, I think it was right at 50.
What
which
were we paying our last planning guy that we had?
that amount. So
That
the
amount.
total cost would be about 65 to 68,000 total expenses.
And is that something that's, now you said that was in our current budget
Yes,
for the planner.
yes,
The two positions we'll have to fund will be the finance person and the parks.
yes.
So,
What's the finance director, what salary are you looking at for that?
Probably around 50. If you want one that has experience to be able to manage everything that we're looking at. So that total
Part-time rec person.
around 30, I would say.
I believe both are needed.
I think that, you right on that, Commissioner One, I think, and we actually need another position, but
Yes.
we got to stay within reason, because we're gonna have to make decisions after we make this discussion, and y'all know that's coming up, it's gonna be about tax increase.
Start here.
I can see in the future that we need someone, for economic development, whether that's a contracted person, someone like Robin who's already helping us, or someone that can actually clock more hours day to day for us. That's going to be coming in the immediate future. Once this Riverwalk gets in, our apartment complexes come in, our town is going to take off.
We got, I think all of us have realized, especially what's going on right now, we're short on staff. Our projects, even we need people, someone that can get on these projects and lock on to them. We have the ideas that's what they do. They take the project and run with it and keep it going. I don't know the full, like I say, I have to get my mentality up. I know what a planner basically does. But, sometimes we pick up more than one task, when you come on the staff because, we're not like a huge town and we don't have all these positions and all these specific people that do individual things. So you have to multitask a little bit, but at the same time, if you don't pay the right salaries, you're not gonna get the people. Most people are having a hard enough time getting people to work right now. Businesses, and you see it everywhere, trying to hire people. County can't even get inspectors. They have they're down by almost a third right now, and can't find them. One, if they come to work for you, they want some outrageous salary to even come work. And what I'm seeing some of the towns paying on some of these salaries, Lord help. I mean, it's over $100,000. And, like I say, a lot of people having problems right now, having major issues.
So we're sticking with those positions, but we have a list of other positions. I know we talked about code enforcement, we've talked about
Yes.
building inspector, you talked about economic development, then we're gonna put those on the back burner.
Especially when the apartment complexes come in, code enforcement, and even possibly, upgrading our quote-unquote police services. That's probably going to be on the horizon.
Hopefully that means talking to the
Yeah.
sheriff and getting a dedicated person here, because I can tell you, starting
And
on.
we can start off with that process, and I'm sure, most towns, when you reach a population of 4,000 to 5,000, normally you're gonna have to have your own police force of that, or you're gonna pay out a lot of money. Even, leasing from the sheriff's office, you can start out, it's pretty reasonable. If we do, you know, hire officers for prime time, we don't have all the headaches that go along with it. You pay their salaries, and we'd have to get that set up and see how it works and sign a contract. That would be good for a while. But if our town ever reaches 5,000 people, I promise you that won't work. You'll have to form a police agency, and then when you do that, you're gonna suck up a lot of money. Because it's a huge amount to start it. And it's a huge amount to keep it running. But by then, we'll be at a point where we can do it because, you know, we have a lot of entities and towns here in our county right now that have about the basic, not much more population than we have, but their tax rates are a lot higher, their property values are a lot higher, and they can have their own police force, which Shalott is one of them. But they've had a police force as long as I can remember. Even when they were small, but they only had like 1 or 2 officers. But now they got probably 20-some officers.
Would you like a motion from us for these positions?
If you'd like to do it tonight, yes. If
What positions do y'all want to go? You want to take the staff's recommendation on the
Yeah, we've
finance, the park, and the
we've already done the planning one, so that's
Planning.
already done. So just the part-time Parks and Rec employee and the finance director.
so
yes.
we need a motion to, somebody will put a motion on the floor to tell staff to go ahead and, let's,
David?
Yeah, make that motion. Yes, sir.
all in
Thank you.
favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
So, we'll start working on that, and let's see if we can, do we have the available funds right now if we want to fill these positions?
Yes, we have the funds for that. But anything over and above that, then we're starting to get into the danger zone, so.
Don't let us get into danger, because I think what we're gonna talk with next, gonna make that decision. And I think if we owe the positions, we got to look at now, under this section, we got our staffing needs, but also the revenue side's gonna come up. And there's only a few ways that we can raise revenue. That's taxes, and I think you also have in here,
Your property tax and your
I think
vehicle
you have the
tax.
property tax and the
Mhm.
car tax.
Sharon,
Will
if
you
you
take
can-
action on those tonight? or is
No,
that-
No.
we don't need to take action on tonight. We just quickly run by it. I think,
If you can put
did
this
all
up,
y'all get a
Sharon.
copy of the list of what's recommended at each, for 1 cent we go up?
Yeah.
Right now, we're at 9 cents on the 100. We need to find a reasonable range, have some public hearings, to get feedback from our town, see what kind of feedback we have. It's not, you know, right now it's kind of a tough time to be asking people for money.
I'm sure I know what the feedback would be.
And,
Yeah, sell more liquor.
Have more running clubs in the park.
but I think we need to at least try to get enough without hitting too hard. At least we can fund positions that we need here for staffing, and nothing else.
Athena, I asked you to provide us a number of what you thought revenue we need to bring in. Did you?
For the upcoming fiscal year. In a perfect world, I would say we need $500,000, but you know, to scale it down, 300.
All right, I mean, I just want to give a perspective of what we're looking at. I mean, there's a lot of things that we want to do, and we do need to have revenue, but I just want to put a perspective of what we're looking at, so between $300,000 and $500,000.
And I think the, probably the low end would be 300,000. So we don't need to make a decision on it. If y'all will consider that, look at, what staff has given us to look at as far as numbers on the percent, where we go from 9, if we go up 5 cents, 6 cents, how far we go up, but we got to put it out there in the public arena and get feedback from the people in town.
These numbers have not changed since last year when you gave these to us?
Yes, the only thing that changes is our cars increased. We went from 2,000 cars to 2,101.
Okay.
And that'll only continue to increase as soon as the apartment complexes come in. And our assessed value, of course, went up a little bit. So our property tax revenue in turn went up from 184 to 195. Also note that we do have the revaluation coming up, which they'll start working on. So that may be something that you can, a period of window that you have to increase taxes without maybe looking like it's so much of an increase.
Without the rate
Yeah,
the,
to adjust.
I'll get it for the tax board since I sit on that too for the county and see what they're looking at as an average. If they had about to figure them out.
They said they were going to use the sales from the end of 2022 to kind of build an average for the assessed values. So,
You're talking about our property tax that the county's gonna raise it. Yeah, I've seen some of the, potential there. I'm not happy with that either. But it's something we're gonna have to address. We don't have a choice. We better put it out there and get feedback from the public and see what they're gonna say. And we can explain to them why we need it.
That a social media thing we want to put out too?
I think Adrian would be a perfect person to help
I
us host those
absolutely agree
public
with you.
meetings and
I got you.
provide the vision for why we would like to increase taxes.
And the people in our town have had an extreme low tax rate for a very long time, but it's just, the bad part is, it's just not a good time to raise taxes with everything that's going on right now. But, most people would be offended if you raise your taxes if it was a prime year and everybody making a fortune. But if we don't put it out there, we're not gonna know. We need to get the feedback from the public. But we decide, we don't need to put it out, I think, until we can establish the rate that we want to set. So when we put it out to the public, they know exactly how much.
Well, what I meant with the social media, we can always word it as what would you be comfortable with? I mean, if we were required to raise taxes, what would you be comfortable with? Now, I don't know if it's realistic, a penny or, but you might have some people coming back and saying, well, I'd be good with a 50% increase or a 25%
I
increase.
think, what we got, how much would it have to,
And explain the fact, the reason why we need this.
how much is it we'd have to get over 300,000? Is it 5 cents?
We would have to actually double, well, we could bring it up to 14 cents and that would give us 302,000.
14 cents, that'd be an increase of,
But that would be a difference of about 100,000.
that'd be 5 cents.
So that'll be 14 cents.
I'm talking about the.
Oh, the increase, yes. But if we wanted to gain an actual 300,000, we'd go way above doubling.
I think we go with doubling, all of us would be lynched out on the tree.
Well, like I said, that's the beauty of social media, spin it right, kind of give our
I'm
argument.
missing.
We'll have something to understand, we begrudgingly agree.
How much is the revaluation gonna make a difference?
It depends on, well, I mean, the way sales are going in Brunswick County, I would say, or all across the state, I would say the values are gonna increase.
It's gonna take care of a penny or two for
Well,
us.
yeah, we might not have to raise it as high because we'll be bringing in more revenue.
Robin, do you agree?
Yeah, obviously, I mean, there are two pieces to the formula. When one goes up, the other one doesn't have to go up as much. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Wouldn't the apartment buildings bring more revenue in without raising the taxes as high?
When they come in, let's just say we had a comp that we did here, which was Hawthorne at Leland, and they're valued at 21 million. So for today's tax rate, they would bring in $19,000 for us for one apartment complex. So,
but if we went up the additional, that would increase.
39.
Also, we have the ability to make special tax districts if we want to. So we do have that ability. Something to think about, let's feed into that, look at how much, I think staff really recommending, we need at least 300,000, okay? That's at least 5 cents. So if we look at anything, let's say from 5 cent increase, and if y'all want to go higher or stay with that or whatever, and we'll see how much feedback we can get from the public. Are we okay with that?
Sure.
I would like to thank everyone for being so flexible with their particular responsibilities, or whatever your job title is, or the Mayor Pro Tem coming in and giving us free IT support, or Commissioner Long coming in and bringing us supplies that are donated. Just everyone's contribution and their flexibility to work on different items, that's what has moved us forward to where we are now. And we definitely will need everyone in the future. So, thank you so much.
And like I say, we need to put, and I think the revenue increase is something, but, we really don't have a choice. It just has to happen. If we're gonna function and we're gonna make things happen, we got to have staff people to take care of it.
Get our men out there.
And, it's not a bad thing if we can sell it right, because it shows the people that we're actually getting ready to grow. We're expanding, when them 2 apartment complexes go in, that's gonna add, I think that's close to 2,000 people probably to the town. That's a lot of people. And, I never thought we'd be there, but, I think we're gonna be there, and I think we're gonna be a lot higher, but I think some of the other areas are gonna come into the town. It's gonna change our whole dynamics within our town, and,
It's gonna set some records.
I hope we're gonna be part of that.
Hey, speaking of records, what, is that the next item?
Wow, you are really good at these segues, Dave. Very
He's
nice.
put-
He's working hard, he's working overtime
He's
on
working
these
hard to
segues.
push me off. Okay.
We only give you 20 minutes of topic.
If we're done with that item, we'll move to 4C, discussion on records management. Madam Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A recent incident that we had with Brunswick County has brought back to the forefront that we need to get back to coming up with a digitized records management system. And we're going to be getting some proposals and bringing those back to you during the budget process. So it's something that we've been putting on the back burner for years and years and years. And we're at the level now where we just can't put it on the back burner anymore. We have to go ahead and do it. And so,
Y'all okay with that? Now, we don't have to have a motion, just direct staff to go ahead and get the proposal, put it together, look at the cost of digitizing.
yes, sir.
Y'all okay with that?
Thank you.
Okay, now that was fast.
Mayor, I tell you what, we might even have to do that. You close that so quickly, we should go to closed session right now.
Okay, is any other, anything else anybody wants to say before we go into closed session?
No, sir.
I just want to
I'd
thank,
like to thank everybody that come here, thank
Yes.
y'all for staying here. If you don't want to stay and wait till we come back out of this thing. But, Adrian, Robin, we appreciate y'all a lot. Y'all have been a major, contributors to this town and what's happening in our town.
yes,
And I hope y'all will be here with us until we hit the big project. And we all stand down there together, cut the ribbon when the downtown area gets built.
Thank you.
Well, thank y'all so much. I want to get that out. If I could I have a motion that we go into closed session under North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A3, consult with our attorney. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. We're going to close session. spend a lot of money for nothing.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Aw.
They win the second win.
I'll look through it,
I'll get it back in the next.
Oh, boy. The next one will be a lot bigger, because Commissioner Long donated a binder for me to fill up. Give you an update on Westport Lost before we go back. They resolved the issue with the bus stop, and they're working on the other item that they have with the landscaping. So they're gonna be ready to start construction sometime in the summer.
You know, that's gonna add $30 million to our tax base here, if you think about it between the two of those. That's 10% of our,
Can I have a motion to come back into open session?
So moved.
All in favor? All opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. Town Attorney, you have any comments to make, sir?
no, just, Mr. Mayor, just that we discussed in the closed session, instruction for negotiating on a piece of property. And the other thing is, we discussed a litigation matter. It's file number 22 CDS 222.
Thank you, sir, I appreciate that. Any comments?
No.
Do I have a motion that we adjourn?
Some,
All in favor? All opposed? Ayes have it. We stand